Women in WWE frustrated at the lack of direction, AEW ignoring its talent, highlights from AEW and NXT's head-to-head shows. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Get exclusive bonus videos over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk.
This past Monday's Raw was the first episode in over a decade that wasn't 3 hours long, as Raw returns to its former 2-hour format for the next few months. The show received mixed reviews. For the first time in the Triple H era, our WrestleTalk podcast feedback was that this episode was a thumbs-in-the-middle show, with lots of complaints levied against its pacing and commercial breaks taking up match time. Fightful Select report that there were growing pains with the switch back to 2 hours, but add formatting Raw wasn't difficult as the company has been running 2-hour SmackDowns for the last 25 years. That could not be said for the women's division, however, which came under the most fire from fans. In a callback to a pre-Give Divas a Chance era Divas division, all the Raw women had a 10-woman tag, and a meaningless one at that. And Fightful Select are reporting there was some frustration internally with the booking of the women's match, the perceived lack of direction for the talent involved, and a commercial consuming much of the match. For my money, this is nothing new, as I've been saying this on the WrestleTalk podcast and on this very show for months that WWE have dropped the ball with their women's division since Becky Lynch took time off. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. And speaking of backstage frustrations, there appears to be some within AEW as well. While her husband, Mike Bennett, has been getting semi-regular TV time on Dynamite and Collision, the same cannot be said for Maria Kanellis. She has been on Ring of Honor, managing the team of Griff Garrison and Cole Carter, but many fans have called for her talent to be used more across AEW's TV as well as backstage creative. However, it looks like Maria's time in All Elite Wrestling is coming to an end. In an update on Instagram, Kanellis posted a video announcing that she was awaiting surgery and an ultrasound on her thyroid and added, "My contract with AEW is coming up on October 31st. I've reached out to them to find out whether or not they are re-signing me, but I haven't really heard anything yet." She put out a separate post on Twitter saying, "For those asking, I will be accepting interviews about my time and treatment in AEW after October 31st. Wishing the best for Mike and Maria on the ultrasound result and surgery." Last night's NXT took place in St. Louis, Missouri in its second episode on the CW and loaded it up with title matches, debuts, and main roster talent. And that's because it wasn't just the second outing of the Black and Silver era, but it was also going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite on TBS, which was preempted due to the hockey coverage tonight, touchdowns and such. The show kicked off with new NXT champion Trick Williams calling himself Tricky 2 times and seemingly found his first challenger for that title when Wes Lee interrupted and told Williams that he doesn't think that he's it. Continuing the interrupting train, Toot Toot, Raw's Jey Uso came out and he and Williams did dueling chants of "Whoop that trick" and "Yeet." The crowd in the building had a good time with it. It will be Lee versus Ethan Page in a #1 contenders match next week. Kelani Jordan teamed with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair to beat Fatal Influence in a fun trios match. Fallon Henley in particular was great, and Randy Orton had a conversation backstage with Nathan Frazier and Axiom about just how fast Javon Evans was. They told him he was very fast. Oh, he'll find that out soon enough. They teased that Julia had a new friend to back her up against Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade, and it didn't take long to find out who that was. As Perez and Jade came out for a promo segment bragging about the title retention last week, Julia came out onto the stage to bring out her old friend, which turned out to be the debuting Stephanie Vaquer, who brawled with the heels and sent them fleeing. A cool debut for Vaquer and slots her right into the main event scene straight away, which is excellent. Still think she could have done those Rev Pro dates that she was booked for, but I get that this is a wrestling war. Ren Sinclair of No Quarter Catch Crew looks to be Vaquer's first NXT match. But in perhaps the most shocking moments of the night, Tony D'Angelo pinned Oba Femi to win the NXT North American Championship. Gabagool, more like Gababool, am I right? The match was very good, the finish was excellent, and the title switch pop was superb. A win all round. Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson will face Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill for the women's tag titles on this Friday's SmackDown, no less, and Nikita Lyons made her return to NXT to set up a match with Lola Vice for next week. Fraxium beat SmackDown's Grayson Waller and Austin Theory to retain their tag titles in a good match, and Ridge Holland had a pull-apart brawl with Riley Osborne backstage. Ethan Page seemingly turned babyface when he stopped a Sexy Red musical performance and set up a feud with Javon Evans, who then had his main event match with SmackDown's Randy Orton. The match was good, but it will only be remembered for the oh so nearly awesome RKO reversal. Evans attempted a corkscrew dive into the RKO, but it was all mistimed and they both just fell down. It was a real shame as it was so close to being perfect. In another era of WWE, this would have been the most talked about thing on Reddit and mocked, but with so much goodwill towards the company right now, it is being treated as it should. An unfortunate mistake. Another good edition of NXT that was heavy on the wrestling, which I like, and set up some good stuff for next week. In a stark contrast, on the other hand, AEW didn't feel like a go-home show for WrestleDream. It didn't feel like a show that was coming off the back of a huge TV deal, but more importantly, it did not feel like a show that was trying to compete and counter-program against NXT. It felt like a show that knew it wasn't going to win the ratings war, so just did a standard show. Case in point, the first 15 minutes of this show with multiple talking segments. It opened with Jon Moxley cutting a promo on Bryan Danielson saying this Saturday he is walking into war and one day Bryan will understand why it has to be this way. It was a great promo from Mox with more illusions of bigger implications for AEW. And with reports saying it's not Shane McMahon, perhaps it will be the AEW debut of Sami Callihan. Danielson cut a return promo saying that tonight he is going to kick Claudio Castagnoli's head in, and then Darby Allin came out for a promo with Brody King to hype their match for WrestleDream, talking about their times on the indies together and how King wanted to come to All Elite Wrestling but was under contract with Ring of Honor in a pre-TK purchased world. Darby says that King wants to take his spot as the face of the company, and King agreed because he believes Darby is taking advantage of that honor. Darby wanted to climb Mount Everest, but what happens when he doesn't come back and the company no longer has a face? They had a brawl and Darby cracked King in the face with a rock. The talking continued as we cut backstage to find out that Don Callis has struck a deal with Jake Roberts for Lance Archer, as Jake will have a new group to represent. This probably could have meant more if we'd seen Jake and Archer on screen together recently. And then Daniel Garcia did some more talking, announcing he'll be doing more talking later on. This also should have felt like a bigger deal, but by this point I was so sick of people f***ing talking. This isn't how you counter program. Do a f***ing wrestle! Thankfully, Hologram took on Commander in a brilliant little match that featured all the lucha. Man, all those people who pretended to be mad about Will Ospreay and Ricochet last week are gonna have a field day with this one. There was a mad spot where Commander did his rope walk gimmick, but Hologram tried to counter with a springboard on the other side of the ring, so Commander walk roped a little bit more and then powerbombed him out of the sky, out of nowhere. Eventually, Hologram hit his airplane spin powerbomb for the win, though he didn't get time to celebrate as the new LFI of Rouge Drolistico and Beast Mortis attacked, revealing that Jake Roberts is their new manager. Again, this might have meant more if we'd actually seen Roosh and Don Callis on screen together recently. Mark Briscoe cut a great promo on Chris Jericho, but it's still not enough to make the J line from last week feel like anything more than just cheap heat. Oh cool! More talking! But this one does really mean something, and was about the only part of this week's Dynamite that felt like a show that was trying to counter-program NXT. Daniel Garcia came out for a promo to figuratively talk about how he's been sat at home figuring out what he's going to do with his AEW contract coming up, and report that WWE were chomping at the bit to sign him, and he wanted to give his answer in front of the fans because that's what they deserve. And his answer is that he is one of the best wrestlers in the world, so he's staying where the best wrestle. He is staying with AEW. This is a new Garcia and one that wants gold around his waist. A good promo, a good segment, and a great win for AEW. Now it's time to follow up on that. He set up a potential TNT title match against Katsuyori Shibata so long as he beats Jack Perry for the TNT Championship at WrestleDream, and Perry had a promo against Shibata later in the show. We got a video package announcing Swerve Strickland returns to AEW at WrestleDream, MVP and Shelton Benjamin watch from backstage, and then more talking as Mercedes Moné cut a promo on Emi Sakura. We were supposed to get Willow Nightingale versus Britt Baker in a #1 contenders match for WrestleDream, but Tony Khan announced before the show via something called TikTok, I know I've never heard of it either, that Baker was unwell. So instead, he booked a 4-way cluster of Nightingale taking on 3 former women's champions in Saraya, Jamie Hayter, and Nyla Rose. Neat on paper, clunky in execution. This whole women's division has been on cooldown since All In, which is mad because Jamie Hayter is right there. She brawled with Saraya and Harley Cameron a lot during the match and eventually brawled to the back with Penelope Ford. Shout out to the 5 of you who get that reference. And Willow pinned Saraya after a Death Valley driver through a table. She later pounced Mariah May backstage and cut a great promo about beating former champions and will make May 1 next. Jay White squashed Cody Chun and set up a match with Hangman Page for WrestleDream. Hook had a few words with Christian Cage backstage, and Mercedes Moné beat Emi Sakura to retain both her TBS and New Japan Strong Women's Championships. You know, for a show that was called Title Tuesday, this was the only title match. NXT had more, but this was, shock, a second women's match on the show, and both of those matches were given time to get over. But even in that, there's frustrations, as Chris Statlander is just a babyface now, and she's just not with Stokely Hathaway now, and she sent Camille packing. Why get invested in characters when creative just changes with the wind? Will Ospreay called out Don Callis to get him to admit that he sent out Konosuke Takeshita to attack him last week, and after doing some Boris-like dodging of the question, he finally admitted that he did it. Will said that he is done with the family. Wasn't he already? And brawled with Takeshita. Carl Fletcher was torn and refused to hit Will with the screwdriver, and eventually Ricochet ran down for the save. This was the most story-driven thing on the show, and by far the best build for WrestleDream. Top Flight are having issues in their group. Private Party turned down the services of Stokely Hathaway, and the main event saw Bryan Danielson and Wheeler Yuta beat the Blackpool Combat Club of Claudio and Pac in a great tag team match. Danielson brawled with Mox afterwards, and the rest of the heels beat up poor Wheeler Yuta with a hammer. Danielson ran back down and stood tall as the show went off the air. Another odd episode of Dynamite. Getting the TV deal was huge, but they need some solid creative direction if they want to turn around attendance numbers and interest in the product. And part of that, I would think, is starting to announce matches for next week's show ahead of time. Now go and watch Ollie's review of Monday Night Raw, which is back to 2 hours, but was filled with commercials.